Everybody knows about a deadline.
I don't think since I've been here we missed a paper going out on a blizzard or snow or storms or anything.
There's usually a lot of pressure to get the press up and running.
If people saw how it's done from start to finish, how many people are involved in this situation, they would find it really fascinating.
I am a pressman at the Philadelphia Inquirer. I've been working here 41 years, and this is the end of the line for the press room out here.
I'm the working supervisor for the mailroom and been here for 36 years.
I've been here for 30 years. I'm a third-generation mailer.
My father was in the business, my grandfather was in the business.
My dad and my brothers worked in the paper handling.
It's like a family business.
I thought that I would retire from the newspaper business like my father and my grandfather. It goes so far back in my family that loading a horse and buggy on Broad Street with newspapers, it was the greatest moment of being able to see that of my grandfather, really in all his glory, because he loved this business.
It's got me a good life the last 12 and a half years. It's been a lot of work and sweat, but I mean, it's paid off. Knowing tonight that that's it, that's the last time I walk out of here and, you know, packing the stuff up. It is what it is. You know, like I said, it probably won't hit me till, you know, I don't have to come to work tomorrow. Today is the last print at the Schuylkill printing plant. The last paper's coming out to be printed from this facility. I hope it's a good run. You know, I don't want to have issues on the last run. I hope it's smooth. Tonight, there'll be 6 guys on each crew. So we'll have 2 presses, A press and B press.
People don't realize, you know, how complicated it is. But these guys they're very skilled at what they do.
Trying to see how we do it for the last time. I can dig it. Have a call. Let's go.
Some days it's easy. Some days it's, you know, stuff doesn't want to work and doesn't go your way.
One Bravo press, I got a motor run failure. On the conveyor on the press, yes.
All right, I started it up and it stopped.
You said it stopped. Do you have a fault up there or no?
No. I tried again.
All right, try that real quick, please.
All right, there you go.
All right, 10-4.
My whole life I wanted to yell, "Stop the presses." But now when I think about it, I don't. I don't want to stop them. I wish they could keep going, actually. When this building was built, At the time, in 1992, it was the largest printing facility under one roof in North America. It's 780,000 square feet. It's 46 acres. We have 9 presses. When this was built, it was actually $300 million to build. They put the presses in, and they actually built the building around it. One press, it weighs almost as much as a Navy destroyer. We have 9 of them. So it was quite the operation, it really was. Up until a couple months ago, we were printing the Inquirer, the Daily News, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, Philadelphia Gay News, City Paper, Philly Weekly, Los Angeles Times we did for a while, the Village Voice. We were churning out a lot of papers. We did 1 million copies of the Inquirer, 250,000 Daily News. So every one of those presses was running like 24/7. There was just people everywhere. It was so much fun. It was always excitement, you know, and always trying to put the paper together. There was times when we were saying, well, I don't think we're going to get it out of the building, but we did. I mean, everybody came together and you know, we did it. We did it.
You know, we all bonded over the years, you know, I mean, everyone has their different things, you know, jokesters, you know, some people were serious. Not many of us really bickered or argued with somebody, you know, for the most part, we all got along, so, you know, and that was a good thing, you know.
I've built up relationships here for, you know, a long time. And, you know, we're like friends.
Sad to see it ending. I thought, you know, we were going to be here a couple more years.
All good. Dave just called. All good.
All good?
All right, roger that. That's it.
All good in the hood.
That's the end. Clock out and go home. I'll see you.
Man. Yes, sir.
It's a profession that has so many professions inside it. Like the people from drivers to journalists, pressmen. I mean, we have so many variety, especially of men, women, ages that work here. It's awesome.
To know that you were putting something out there that, you know, that people relied on every day, and it was an important part of their day.
End of an era.
Yeah, how are you feeling?
Excited and sad at the same time, you know. Excited for new opportunities and sad that it's been over 20 years here. And it's done.
Yeah, you too, Bill. You too. Yeah, it really is unbelievable. Can't believe it's coming down to this. All right, Kev. Yeah, another 2 weeks. Take care of yourself, man. All right, yeah, take care of yourself.
I feel like you're part of the community because, you know, you are actually getting information out to them. When I started, I mean, the paper was everything. It was just unbelievable, and everybody wanted to get the full story, and that's what you got.
Title for this one is Black Military Families.
So just in the interest of time, this is the same format that we disqualified before. Is it okay if we skip this one? If everyone's in agreement that we have to disqualify this one?
Yeah, it's only
Not
fair.
agreed.
Yeah,
Okay.
I didn't unfortunately agree.
I think they should add a social or tap story or even a mobile category at this point.
Yeah, I think that these could fit in the visual presentation categories as well.
Yeah.
So, or the innovation, as we had discussed.
Do we provide any feedback at all to the events? Because I think like it almost seems like there was one person in Agio that was in charge of contests and maybe, submitted to the wrong category.
Yeah, we will, as well as to the ones that submitted over time. There were a lot of videos that were over 10 minutes that submitted to this category when they should have submitted to documentary. So we'll let them know.
I think it would be cool to have a mobile category because it's like mobile's so specific. It's kind of like apples and oranges with other innovation.
Yeah.
I agree. It doesn't really belong in the innovation category anymore because it's just the way most people get their news, and it can't really stand up to, a lot of like desktop interactives. They'll just feel so much bigger and larger and more interactive than something on mobile, but doesn't mean it's more valuable.
Yeah.
Right.
We can pass that feedback along to the committee in thinking about the categories next year. Okay, let's move on to the next story.
Third entry, the title is Why Electric Planes Will Be the Next Great Challenge.
Hey, I get it.
Commitment
can be scary, but
second
not when you're saving up to 15% with Subscribe and Save at Amazon. You get free repeat delivery on your favorite items. And if things don't work out, you can always cancel. Seriously, no one would judge you if you call it off. Okay.
Learn all the ways to save with Amazon.
Flight. It moves us, our goods, and honestly, kind of everything. How it moves has also changed from one propulsion system to the next. So is what we're used to enough? Or are we about to see a new type of propelled flight? One that's electric.
Propulsion really drives the design of aircraft. I think we're seeing the third wave of propulsion, which is going to bring on the third wave of different types of aircraft. It's a really exciting time.
Dr. Pat Anderson is the director of the Eagle Flight Research Center at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University.
The first airplanes were driven by piston engines, and so those were sort of straight wing, slower aircraft. And then in World War II, we saw the advent of the jet engine.
It's the world's first warplane with jet propulsion.
The look of airplanes changed significantly as we went from piston-driven airplanes to jet airplanes. We saw very sleek airplanes that went very quickly.
It will do the job of several of the biggest propeller-driven planes.
And now we're looking at the third wave. I don't think you're going to see a lot of retrofits of electrical propulsion into older aircraft. What I think you're going to see is an entirely new generation and look of airplanes.
No matter the look, in order to fly, you need energy. That could come from batteries one day. But today, it comes from jet fuel, and there's a reason why.
Jet fuel is nearly the perfect package to hold energy. If you look at the specific energy of liquid fuels, it's 7.3 horsepower hours per pound. And right now at the pack level, a battery is about 0.1 horsepower hours per pound. That's off by 73 times. It's not 73%, it's 73 times. So that's quite a gap. With liquid-fueled aircraft, only about 30% gets translated to thrust. In a battery electric airplane, that's nearly 80% efficiency. So when you take that into effect, that 73 times gets knocked down to only about 20 times, which is still quite challenging. The good news is that batteries are getting better with time and liquid fuels aren't.
Leaving us with?
Right now, we have a rising carbon footprint from aviation.
Tarek Weeks is the chief engineer at Elroy Air, where they're developing autonomous cargo aircraft.
People have greater economic means who are able to use more carbon
meaning more people checking in. Only around 20% of the world's population has ventured into the skies, but that's going to nearly double by 2035.
The key thing here is that we need to, over time, reduce the footprint of these systems, and we need to get to a point where we're not seeing this upward trend we're emitting.
Getting rid of planes isn't an option, so we need to change them.
Batteries are really interesting because they hold the promise of being very environmentally friendly, but they're quite heavy. So that provides a challenge, especially in aviation, which is very weight-centric.
That challenge? If an airplane needs more power, you need to add more batteries. But batteries make the plane heavier, so you need more energy. Therefore, you add more batteries, which adds more... Oh, okay. We can move on.
We need to drive the weight of those batteries down, and so the research in aerospace is focused on that particular metric.
To start, aviation could follow the playbook of a different kind of vehicle.
What we're moving towards and what companies like Elroy Air are working on is making hybrid power plants. So your Prius per se.
This hybrid approach could start small, focusing on flights less than 500 miles, a range making up half of the world's commercial routes.
We have a long way to go to get a pure battery electric plane across distances such as the Atlantic. But for things such as regional travel, what I think we're going to see is hybrid electric bridge that gap before we make these giant leaps and bounds.
It's no giant leap, but still a significant step that allows engineers the opportunity to test batteries in an aircraft.
Hybrid electric system use that battery power to get off the ground. So we're able to get a more fuel efficient system. And when you cruise more efficiently, you burn less carbon. A Prius, a Chevy Volt, any hybrid car, that's exactly what they do. They use that battery to get up to speed. And then by making all the components more optimal, they're able to drastically reduce the amount of fuel you burn. And that's effectively what we're trying to do in an aviation sense.
Electric flight gives us hope for greener skies, but it could also bring the arrival of an entirely new type of flying machine.
It's an automobile on its way to a hangar to become an airplane.
No, not quite.
With the current economics, a flying car from a personal standpoint probably isn't viable. But if you take that aircraft, you spread it out over many uses each day, like a taxi, there are a lot of people that speculate we can bring the cost of this down to the higher end Uber type models.
With autonomous aircraft that don't require a runway, companies like Uber see these futuristic commutes as a possibility. But if you're wondering how this is different from this, we might have an answer for you.
You could just imagine in a city if we had 10,000 helicopters operating around. That would be annoying. Noise is one of the critical aspects of being able to deploy urban air mobility and air taxis. And that lends itself to high torque, low RPM electric motors, aircraft that are really, really quiet.
Transporting people safely is the goal. But using these new technologies to deliver supplies could be just as vital.
There's a potential humanitarian aspect of this. You're seeing more and more of these instances where you either have infrastructure failures or there is need for rapid distribution.
Eliminating the need for a runway and operating autonomously would give these aircraft the ability to connect to isolated areas, providing much needed supplies such as water or medicine to those in need.
What everyone wants to know is when will I be able to book a ticket on an electric aircraft? I'm excited to see this happen sooner rather than later. I think what I see in the future is a mix of traditional aircraft and these newer types of aircraft. That's where the industry needs to go, and I want to give a stepping stone for the future as well.
final entry's title is How the Hunt for a Missing Planet Revealed Asteroids in Our Solar System.
USAA is made for the safe pilots. For Mac, who can come to a stop with barely a bobble. Lucia, who announces her intentions even if no one's there. And Sergeant Moore, who leaves room for her room. With USAA Safe Pilot, when you drive safe, you can save up to 30% on your auto insurance. Get a quote and start saving. USAA, what you're made of, we're made for.
It was January 1801. Giuseppe Piazzi was looking at the stars through his fancy, state-of-the-art telescope when he realized that one pinprick of light that he'd tracked for days was moving quite differently than the rest. Was it a comet, a planet, or something else? Piazzi had a guess, but it would be years, centuries even, before we'd really start to understand what he'd found.
The first astronomers who discovered asteroids were using telescopes that we would think are quite basic today. Mirrors and telescopes today can often fill pretty large warehouses, big rooms, and they are polished by robots and computers, so they are very, very accurate. So the first astronomers were using much more basic, much smaller equipment, but they did an amazing job.
Meet Dr. Jennifer Scully, a planetary geologist at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. She also worked on the Dawn mission, which we'll get to. But first, back to 1801.
Giuseppe Piazzi was one of a number of people at that time who were pointing their telescopes towards the sky, trying to find what they thought was probably a missing planet in between Mars and Jupiter. Scientists and mathematicians had done calculations showing that the gap between Mars and Jupiter was too large, so people thought there should be something in there.
And there was. Piazzi quickly announced to a newspaper that he'd found a comet, but in a letter to his astronomer friend, Barnaba Oriani, he wrote, perhaps it might be something better than a comet. The news got around to an elite group of planet hunters called the Celestial Police. They wanted to see for themselves, but Piazzi's new discovery had gone missing.
We'll find him, all right. Sooner or later, we find them all.
Unfortunately, he couldn't follow up with the observations because there was some bad weather and he was ill.
It was nearly a year before Piazzi and the Celestial Police saw it again, and officially named the missing planet Ceres. But that didn't last very long. Once these were discovered.
Suddenly astronomers had these 4 different objects in this area between Mars and Jupiter. So then they thought, oh, okay, I guess Ceres isn't a planet because there's a lot of objects there.
Astronomers started to use a new word for small bodies like these, asteroids, meaning star-like. By the turn of the century, hundreds had been found, and the missing planet theory was pretty much dead. But the cosmic hunt to study asteroids was only just beginning.
Today, we have a lot of great technologies to survey the sky and discover hundreds of thousands of asteroids.
Now, scientists are getting a better idea of how some of these small worlds came to be.
Planets and asteroids all began to form about 4.5 billion years ago. Dust and rock that was flying around in the early solar system would have gradually kind of clumped together, forming larger and larger objects by a process that's called accretion. Small bodies like Vesta and Ceres are really exciting because we think they're protoplanets, the leftover material that didn't go on to form planets in our solar system. Because of this, a lot of the small bodies are kind of like fossils of what the original solar system was like.
Some of these objects grew into full-fledged planets like Earth, while asteroids and protoplanets just stopped.
Jupiter exerted a lot of pull on the objects in the asteroid belt because of its pretty large gravity and didn't allow a planet to form there.
The once mystifying gap between Mars and Jupiter may not be home to a planet, but the million-plus objects that do exist there are still a really big deal. That's why spacecraft missions in the 90s started pointing their cameras toward the 2 largest bodies in the asteroid belt.
Hubble actually allowed us to see the general shape of Ceres and Vesta, although no features on the surface were resolved. In particular, Vesta kind of looked like a fuzzy potato.
Okay, so the photos left a lot to the imagination, but over a decade later, this happened.
The Dawn mission to Vesta and Ceres was launched in 2007. It was incredibly exciting when those of us on the Dawn mission started to see the first images and we could see features for the first time. Vesta is mostly made of basaltic rocks, so similar to the kind of stuff that comes out of volcanoes on the Earth. But we also found regions of dark material on Vesta, which are primitive asteroids that were pulverized, formed an impact crater, and showered that dark material all over the surface.
And see this giant crater? It's thought that a collision nearly 1 billion years ago caused Vesta to lose about 1% of its mass. It created new asteroids, which then hit other planets.
This particular classification of meteorites that we have on Earth actually did come from Vesta. These are called the HED meteorites.
And remember him? Dawn arrived at Piazzi's missing planet in 2015, 214 years after he discovered it.
Ceres is just a spectacular and intriguing world. It's not just an asteroid, it is the only dwarf planet in the inner solar system. We think that there was an ancient subsurface ocean that would have mostly frozen over the age of the solar system. In Akator crater, there are these extremely bright regions. Their official name is faculae, which is simply the Latin for bright spot. We think these faculae are brines, so salty liquids. Those brines gradually kind of percolated and migrated their way up to the surface because of the temperatures and pressures. Liquid water isn't going to be stable on Ceres, so the liquid water component was quickly lost, and then the salts are left over, and we still see those bright salty residues.
Running out of fuel, Dawn sent its final sweeping views of Ceres in 2018.
And liftoff of OSIRIS-REx.
Now other spacecraft embark on missions to bring bits of asteroids down to Earth.
There have been sample return missions to various asteroids. There was the Hayabusa 2 mission and the OSIRIS-REx mission. When you do sample return from these small bodies, you would generally take dusty surface material, and then that is locked up in a sample return capsule, which then goes back to the Earth.
In 2020, the capsule released from Hayabusa 2 blazed like a fireball through Earth's atmosphere before landing in the Australian outback. Its contents were taken to labs in Japan for analysis.
Some of the advantages of returning samples like this is that you can analyze them in the laboratories that we have on Earth. You would often get much more detailed information about the exact composition of these materials.
2 centuries ago, Piazzi and the Celestial Police never could have fathomed how their search for one missing planet would lead to unlocking the secrets of many small worlds.
It's really important to study small bodies. They really give us a great indication of what the solar system was like billions and billions of years ago while all the planets were forming. They're kind of like the fossils of the material that would have formed the Earth.
Okay, so we have 3 to consider in this category. The first one is the last run at the, I'm sorry, I can't pronounce that. Is anybody from Philly?
Schuylkill.
Schuylkill?
Schuylkill.
Schuylkill.
Yeah.
Printing plant.
This felt like a
start. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jenna.
Oh, okay. This felt like a love song to newspapers. I thought it was beautifully shot and put together. I will say, I wish the interview with the director was a little earlier on so they could establish, why it was being shut down and how huge it had been a little earlier on, because otherwise I think to get to that point, you would have to be, it felt a little insidery, which is okay. The Philadelphia Inquirer made it. But I think I would have appreciated that information earlier on. But I really liked it. I did like how they introduced it and introduced staffers who'd been there for so long to like very quickly establish how dedicated people are to this place and what an end of an era it is. I thought it was really effective.
I agree. I also like that even though there were, interviews with multiple people, that you really got a sense of place and the intimacy of the whole of the workplace, but the situation, all of it. I definitely got choked up a few times. Yeah, it was just really well done. Like Jenna said, it was well shot, well paced, well edited. Yeah.
Great sound bites as well. Like great lines from people with good timing, and the music was really good.
Yeah, I really love the line. I've always wanted to shout "Stop the presses," but now I don't want to. I thought that was great. As soon as I heard it, I was like, oh, have to include that. But yeah, I agree with everything that's said. I think that, how do you show that this this institution has been, so long running and established for so long? You show that people have been dedicated to it for decades. And I think that they did that really well. Also, I think they flew a drone indoors, which is super scary. So props for that.
Their own property, they can do what they want.
Okay, we'll go on to the next one, which is why electric planes will be the next great challenge by National Geographic.
I just had one note. I think it's something something I find a little bit difficult in judging this is that these two Nat Geo pieces feel so different stylistically and everything from the Philly Inquirer piece, because they're so explanatory. I don't know if any, just a random thought.
It's not random. I think it's pretty stark how different they are. I mean, one is shooting, editing, and producing something from scratch, and another is a really great use of graphics, and the visual research on these is extensive. It's like they find, and the script is well written. They're writing it to try to keep people engaged with a scientific topic that is hard to illustrate, etc. They're trying to use humor. I see what they're doing, but they are so different to be in one category.
Actually, I hate that they're in the same category. I feel like there should be something separate here. Like right now, to judge them, I feel like when we jump into the discussion, I almost want to talk about the two Nat Geo pieces together and judge them against the Philly Inquirer piece, right? And I think that I don't know how many of these types of entries BOP gets, but it might be worth considering splitting off into a new category so that there is a place for it, because yeah, I agree that it feels a little bit out of place.
Of the Nat Geo pieces, I thought the asteroid piece was stronger. Something that stuck out to me in the electric planes piece was that the archival was pre-pandemic. Not all of it, probably, but like the archival of just limitless crowds at airports without masks. That kind of jumped out to me. I thought that the asteroids piece was the graphics and illustrations were a little bit stronger.
Yeah, I also thought that Missing Planet had a better story to it that I was more interested in. If we were to, choose one or the other, I think I'd prefer the Missing Planet story over Electric Planes.
I mean, the thing is, we don't have to include them at all if we don't think they meet, or, that they don't meet the category requirements or don't show like a best and, best.
Sorry, I meant to do this in the beginning, but why don't we go back and look at the category guidelines, and so that we can think about whether this the explainer style does fit in here. So it's culture, sports, and science, and this is an online video team. And it says feature stories about culture, music, film, art, fashion, food, travel, sports, science, and technology. That's all there is in the guidelines.
Yeah, right there, that word feature to me is different from explainer. Is that just the newsrooms I've worked in?
No, to me, that's the word story that's different from explainer.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are neither features or stories. They're topics.
I don't know if this is too early to jump in. I would place last run and have it at that, leave it at that.
I would be okay with that.
I agree with that.
Me too.
Okay, so we have our first place.
Nothing against explainers. They have their place in the world.
Is last run. And then we are not naming a second or third. Is that everybody in agreement with that?
Yes.
Okay.